Okay, so get this. A teachers' union has a really important vote coming up. To get people to actually mail in their ballots, they come up with a contest. And the grand prize? A catered lunch from Chick-fil-A. Yeah, it sounds a little weird, right? But what if I told you that this little selfie contest is actually a masterclass in modern strategy?
So, let's meet our players. You've got the Highlands County Education Association, the HCEA, that's the teachers' union. And then you have, of course, Chick-fil-A. Now, this seems like a totally random pairing, but believe me, this partnership is way more calculated than it looks. It's the hook for a really sophisticated plan to build and, more importantly, measure power.
And here it is, straight from the union's own flyer. The deal was simple. Snap a selfie of you mailing your ballot, show it to your union rep, and boom, you're in the running. But this brings up the real question, right? Why all the effort? Why is a picture with an envelope worth a potential fried chicken lunch? Well, spoiler alert, it has absolutely nothing to do with the lunch. To really get what's going on with the contest, we first have to understand the election it was built for. And this was no student council vote. This was a super high-stakes, legally binding election that was going to decide the future for every single teacher in that district.
Here's the official timeline. This is a real-deal mail-in election, and it's all supervised by the Florida Public Employees Relations Commission, or PERC. So, ballots get mailed out around April 22nd. Members have just 1 week to let someone know if their ballot is missing, and then everything has to be back in the state capitol by May 20th. It's a formal process with very real consequences.
So, what was on the line? They were voting on whether the HCEA would get to keep being their official union to negotiate their contract. And that contract, well, it's basically everything. We're talking salary, insurance, your rights as an employee, how discipline works, how you handle problems at work, the whole shebang. If they lose this vote, they lose their power to bargain over any of it.
And here's the most important part. The union's biggest enemy here wasn't some anti-union group. It was apathy. It was all the people who just figure, my vote doesn't matter, or are just too swamped to remember to mail a ballot. State law requires that at least 51% of all teachers have to vote just for the union to stay certified. So the real goal here wasn't just to win, it was to get a super majority to vote, to prove to everyone, including themselves, that they were a force to be reckoned with.
Okay, now let's get into the playbook itself. Because that selfie contest, that was just the flashy tip of the iceberg. It was really the kickoff for a super detailed 3-week campaign designed to get every single teacher involved. The whole campaign was a 3-week sprint. Week 1 was all about the launch, you get people fired up with the contest, but secretly, you're using it to figure out who your key players are at each school. Week 2 is all about solving problems and reaching out, and Week 3 is the final push, using events and even public leaderboards to make sure every last ballot gets mailed.
So let's zoom in on Week 1. That I voted selfie contest is what professional organizers call a structure test. It sounds technical, but it's just a simple, easy thing to do that secretly tells them a whole lot. It's a way to test their internal network and find out who their real leaders actually are. And a contest is designed to find these people, the organic leaders. Now, an organic leader isn't always the person who's the loudest activist. It's that person at work who everyone just listens to, the one people trust, the one whose opinion actually matters in the break room. The selfie contest shows you who can get their friends to take a simple action. Those are the people who can build real power. Right, so once the union knows who its organic leaders are, the strategy in Week 2 gets bigger. The fight isn't just inside the school anymore. It's about the entire community. Those leaders start reaching out to parents, to local faith leaders, to anybody who will listen, and they frame the issue perfectly. Teachers' working conditions are students' learning conditions. And this quote shows you just how critical that community piece is. It's talking about the famous Chicago Teachers Union strike, and they knew that to win a huge fight, they couldn't possibly do it alone. They needed the whole city behind them, turning a labor issue into a community-wide fight for better schools. All of this, the structure tests, finding the organic leaders, reaching out to the community, it all points to a really core idea in building any kind of movement: the huge difference between organizing and mobilizing. You know, this chart really breaks it down perfectly. Mobilizing is when you get people who already agree with you to show up for something. Like sending a mass email to get your supporters to a rally. And that's fine. But organizing is deeper. It's the slow, methodical work of growing your army, of having those one-on-one conversations, led by those trusted organic leaders, to actually bring new people over to your side. And check this out. This is what a more advanced, much higher risk structure test can look like. This is a petition that was signed by a huge majority of workers at a site.
Then they blew it up into a giant poster and delivered it publicly to their boss. The selfie contest is step one. It's easy, it's low risk. This is a power move. It tells the boss that you're not just a few loud people. You're organized and you're serious.
Okay, so let's zoom out one more time, because this 3-week voting campaign didn't just pop up out of nowhere. We need to see how it fits into a much bigger blueprint for building power over the long haul.
That 3-week sprint we've been talking about, it was actually just one part of a much bigger 15-week campaign. You see, it's a very deliberate, step-by-step process. You start with low-risk tests like the selfie contest, and you slowly escalate to higher-risk actions. It's all designed to build trust and show your strength long before you ever get to a big vote or a contract fight. And through that whole 15-week plan, organizers are chasing a magic number, 70%. If you can get 70% of your people to visibly participate in these structure tests, you've proven you have the collective power to actually win. It shows you can move from just asking for things to being able to demand them.
And this quote, man, this is the whole philosophy in a nutshell. You can't just ask people for their commitment, whether it's their money or their vote. You have to start by building the structure, your network of organic leaders. That structure then lets people take meaningful action together, and seeing that collective action is what gives the whole thing meaning. The commitment, the money, the votes, that all comes at the very end once you've built the foundation.
And that really leaves us with this final thought. A contest for a free lunch seems so simple, maybe even a little silly, but we've seen how it can be an incredibly smart tool for building a powerful majority. It just makes you wonder, what other simple things that we see every day are actually the first step in a much bigger, much more hidden strategy?